नमस्कार, मैं हूं भावना सोमाया और हमारे शो का नाम आपको पता है रंगमंच। आजकल मुंबई में एक नया प्ले चल रहा है जिसका नाम है डिफेंडिंग द केवमैन। नाम थोड़ा सा अजीब है पर ट्रस्ट मी द कंटेंट इज वेरी एंगेजिंग। मैंने इस प्ले को देखा है और इसीलिए आज मैं पूरी टीम के साथ डिस्कशन करूंगी। हमारे आज के एपिसोड में हिस्सा लेंगे दो प्रोड्यूसर, ऑस्कर एरिक्सन जो ओरिजिनल प्रोड्यूसर है इंटरनेशनल प्रोडक्शन के, और इंडियन प्रोड्यूसर जीतेन भगत। प्ले की डायरेक्टर है हीबा शाह, शी नीड्स नो इंट्रोडक्शंस। जिसने अडेप्ट किया है टू एन इंडियन कंटेंट, उसका नाम है तरब कुरैशी, और जो एक्टर है, इट्स अ मोनोलॉग, तो अकेले है मंच पर, उसका नाम है विशेष अरोरा। ये नाटक रिलेशनशिप्स के बारे में है। रिलेशनशिप्स में डिफरेंसेस होते हैं, इसके बावजूद वी सेलिब्रेट relationships. The play is also about gender differences. We approve and disapprove different things in the opposite sex, and yet we are attracted to them. We cannot do without them. तो ये बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग प्ले है और आशा रखती हूँ कि हमारा डिस्कशन भी उतना ही इंटरेस्टिंग होगा। Over to the team.
So we start with you, Oskar. How did this idea come about?
Basically, all started with I was living in Sweden at the time, and my sister and her husband went to see the show in Iceland. I was trying to get into acting school in Sweden. I wanted to be an actor or director. I wasn't sure. And I just got this phone call one day and said, do you want to come to Iceland and invest some money into a play? And it was on that very phone call, I just said out of the blue, yes. I hadn't even seen the show. But I kind of felt this was my calling into the entertainment world. And a year later, we opened the show up in an abandoned bus shelter in Berlin because we couldn't get into any theater with us. And 4 weeks after that, we were sold out. We had 700 seats in there. We opened again at Christmas, and we were sold out. And since then, we're still selling out in Berlin 24 years later with over 5 million tickets sold, and just traveled the show all over the world.
So how did you think of coming to India?
I think it was very exciting. I've been actually trying for a few years, but I've kind of come to closed doors when it comes to this kind of commercial theater scene, which is now happening, I guess, more with bigger musicals, but not so much with these plays that are long running. So I was getting this kind of feedback that this was actually not possible. But I kept trying, and then finally I was put in contact with Jiten. So I flew out here. We had a very good meeting, and we talked about it a lot. And I explained, what we want to do, what needs to happen, how this can actually move forward if we have patience and courage. And he understood everything from the very start, and here we are a few months later.
So Oskar got in touch with you?
Yeah.
Okay, and how did it proceed? How did you choose
So that
Heeba?
was interesting because he got in touch with me. We actually met up in person this Jan, earlier this year. He kind of explained what needed to get done. Then we started the entire journey of what we should do. The interesting thing was I got in touch with Heeba actually to take advice from her, because this Heeba is somebody I know. So I kind of, whenever anything comes to plays, I check with her first. And she kind of was advising me. And then one fine day I said, Heeba, why don't you do the play? You're the director for it. And she thought for a day and she said yes. And Oskar was also actually extremely clear that I want a woman director, because she will understand, because the play is about the genders. So she will really understand, how it is. And we want a woman on one side because the actor is going to be a man. So it's always going to be an interesting combination of both. So naturally then it had to be Heeba, because, that she was on the, top of the list. And yeah, she agreed. It was as simple as that. And then from then we started the entire process of auditioning, because we were also extremely clear we're not going to just pick up somebody from the industry. We were clear that we were going to audition.
Heeba, after this chat and you agreed after thinking for a day, what attracted you to the play?
I found it very funny, and I think we need humor right now in today's world. And of course, the battles between the sexes, or not the battles, you said not to call it the battles, the relationship between both the genders was interesting. And there were, although I'm completely single now, but there were a lot of things that I was agreeing with, and I actually, it made sense to me as well. So I realized it's not just for the couples. Of course, it will really, the couples will find it very interesting, but also if you're a single person, you also might identify with it. And I like the way the script was written. The more I read it, the more funnier I found it. And yeah, that's why I decided to do it.
So how did you choose her?
She's a friend of mine, so basically the script needed to be adapted.
It was adapted from Germany into?
No, it's originally in English. It's written by this comedian called Rob Becker.
But you had to Indianize it.
Indianize it. So every
and
country.
use our reference to context.
Yes. It's been done in every country. Like every country that Oscar has done it in, it's been adapted to that country. So I mean, I asked her to do it because I was busy with the direction, and she's better at, typing and computer stuff or whatever. So she did it for me, and I've known her for a while. And she's a writer as well, and an actress. That's why I asked her to do it.
So tell me, how did you respond to it? And how did your adaptation process begin? What was it that you changed, and what was it that you retained?
So she asked me to read it and see if I would do it. I read it the first time. I found it extremely funny. And then the second time I found it funnier, which I didn't think was possible, because the first time I was just rolling off the bed reading it. And then I understood, because I think the script that we got was last done in Johannesburg. So we had South African referencing and all of that. So she needed me to change that. And we didn't want to make it a desi, play. It had to be Indianized. So the language, the cultural context, those things had to change. And a lot of referencing and all, we changed that. But the core remains the same. And it was really fun.
I liked all the superstar references, the Devanand and the Rajesh Khanna.
Yeah, we discussed
because
that.
Because no matter what we do, but eventually it comes down to Bollywood.
Yeah.
So Vishesh, I come to you. The actor is always the last. After everybody has worked very hard and they've finished sculpting it and making it almost perfect and serving it to you on a plate, and then begins your process.
Yes.
The interesting thing about this play is actually all of them are on a lonely process. He is alone, producer, as he's doing there. Our Indian guy is doing the same thing. The director is all alone always.
Yeah.
And also the person who is working on the content. But on stage, you are alone. And they're all watching you. So I want to understand, what was the psyche when you read it, then when you read it again, then when you started rehearsing, how much did your director and team help you?
So the first time I got 2 scenes to audition on, and I was absolutely bawling. I had a fun time auditioning for it, even though I didn't love it, but somehow it clicked, it worked. And then when we got into reading, so the first week that we spent, we just read the play. And we understood that there are so many, there's a plethora of army in it, which we have to just treat it like an arsenal. Like you pick out those tools and you keep trying and trying and trying. So the more we do it, I feel like there are other things that we will find to do, because the content of the play is unimaginable. It's like everybody would relate to it. Now, in that context, you just have to find different ways of doing it. To be very honest, of course, the first time we performed it was for Mr. Nasiruddin Shah, and I was sweating. I My mouth was dry. I thought I'm not going to be able to go through with this.
So he was watching the audition.
No, he watched
play,
the first
the
time we
performance.
performed the play.
Only him and Ratna.
Only him. Only him.
My
Only him.
We
God.
didn't perform, we just did it for him basically. We just wanted his feedback.
Yeah, but intimidating.
It is. And I feel like that was a good thing because all the nerves post that show were gone. It can't get bigger and scarier than that. So I feel like the more we do it, the more armory we find in it. And of course, having Heeba and the assistant Avirat on this play, both of them understood the context. It's about understanding their psyche as well. One thing was very important is to understand the character. I feel like once you understand the character, all the nuances will come into play, and then you can just keep playing around with the text.
And also every play and every show is different.
Exactly.
So you were explaining to me about the audition, and you said that you didn't want the regular actors, you were going to choose your own actors. What was the process of the audition like? Did you all advertise it? Did you all just go to a casting director? Did you just invite your friends to come and audition? What was it?
No. So we actually put out an ad.
Open casting.
An open casting. We did it, of course, on social media because we know everybody's on social media. So we actually put out an open casting and we got great responses from it. So we got more than 30 odd people who wanted to audition for it, and a lot of people are people who are known in theatre. So yeah, so they came in. I was like, I personally am like, oh, I've seen him. But yeah, we had to go through the process. So I think everybody came. We had two ways of doing it. Either you physically come and we had an audition room that we booked, or you could send in your audition through online or whatever, because some of the actors weren't here. So we said we'll keep that open, and that's how it happened. So we had more than 30 auditions that we did. And we kind of shortlisted it down to 12, and then we further shortlisted it down to 3. So the 3 that we shortlisted it down to, Heeba and me were sure of, and we kind of had our pick. And then we kind of spoke to Oskar and said, this is our 3. Yeah. Now is when you step in, because Oskar has run this show for 24 years in different countries. So he sees the caveman completely much more than how we saw it. We were seeing, parts of it really. And Oskar then went through the audition for a good week. I think he saw it a number of times. And then I remember one night at about 11 o'clock our time, he calls up and says, okay, we found him. This is it. He's hilarious. My wife loves him. I love him. I said, okay, done. And that's how we connected, and this man was here.
So Oskar, what was it about Vishesh that made you decide that this is the guy?
It was the fact that he was, first of all, he was still reading, and most of them off the script, so they hadn't really learned it off book. So I was kind of having to prepare myself to look at the fact that there wasn't a lot of rehearsal behind the actual read. So that's why I was a little bit like thinking about it. But then when I looked at the fact that there was so little, preparation in that sense of getting the whole script down, he was still getting all the timing right. He had a certain sweetness around him that I want this guy to have. I want this to be, I always say that the caveman is actually more just a confused guy. He's not angry. He's not trying to intimidate. He's just a bit confused because he's gotten into a relationship and now he's going, oh, so we're not quite so similar as I thought we were. So, and I just felt it. I just felt that he had that sensibility towards what he was casting with and how he came across.
So Heeba, was he also your first choice, or were you a little weaker towards the other two?
What happened was when we decided to call everyone, because I wanted everyone, like all actors who are the kind of actors who stay in Mira Road, who travel. Like I've been an actor like that. I didn't even know that there were auditions when I was starting off. So I wanted to give everyone a chance. And since I'm an actor, I liked all of them. And actually they were all good. They were all excellent. It was just that I realized later, and it was kind of hopeful also because I've got rejected in so many auditions. It's not the acting is bad, it's just probably you just don't fit a character. So, and the final call was taken by him. I liked a lot of guys who weren't selected. I don't know, and that was for a different reason. Yeah, so, but I also want to say that Avirat Parekh, he's also been very, very helpful. He was the assistant director and he was the one who took charge of the casting. We haven't spoken about him, so he's also a very important part of the team.
When he started rehearsing, Heeba,
Yeah.
what was that one instruction that was going to be an important instruction from you about the character?
Slow down. To slow it down. He was rattling it like a train. And then when we read it and we made sense of the units, then I explained to him about the units and how you should take a breath before. Because the audience has not read the script. They don't know how funny it is, right? They're seeing it for the first time. So you are supposed to, and you're not supposed to find it funny yourself. You, of course you are, but you're supposed to enjoy it so much that the enjoyment stays there and it doesn't transfer to the audience. So that was the but otherwise he was okay to work with, was good to work with. Fortunately, he's done a bit of theatre in Delhi, so he wasn't complete new novice, the kind of people that I've worked with. Yeah, slowing down, which has been told to me. Now I was telling somebody else now.
What do you want to say? When you are on stage, how frightened are you? Or how nervous are you? Or are you the cat's whisker?
I absolutely love being on stage. I feel the most comfortable when I'm there. The good part of this was that for the first time I was doing a 2-hour play alone. I've done solo acts, but I've not done a solo play. So in my mind, I just told myself, you have to trust the process that we've gone through. We've gone through 1.5 months of rehearsals. You have the text with you. And if you goof up, it's on you. You have to correct it. And the audience doesn't know about it. And what I tell myself before every show is, go have fun. This play is about having fun. If you have fun on stage, people are going to enjoy it. But again, as Heeba said, there is that thin line between having fun and being too excited where the plot might get lost. So I keep telling myself, just find that thin line. Once you get it, don't leave it. So
have you ever forgotten your lines or...
it happens, but the thing is, now the more I do it, I get to know, I know the next aspect, even if I might forget my line, but I know where the character is going, where the story is heading to. So it becomes easier, even if I do forget, I know how to mix it up and come to the next stage. So of course,
it's a lot of stress for the director when you and the writer that the lines which are ahead are going back. Yeah. So I want to ask you that what are the favorite passages that you have adapted for yourself, and which of those scenes do you think that he performs well or not up to the mark? You can be honest, he doesn't have to get scared that you're going to criticize.
I really enjoyed the club scene, which is the introduction of him with his wife. When I read it for the first time, I was like, because it's a group of girls who are talking about men and why they are the way they are. There's a word that they use throughout the play. You can come and watch it and see what that word is, what they associate men with. And they're talking about that, and that was so funny the way he was reacting to it. So I've watched almost all the shows that he has done, and it's really funny. So for me to adapt it and change the songs and the referencing and stuff, that was really fun to do. What was the other bit that was... The superstar stuff, the superstars that the cinema and the referencing of the men that we have known since the 50s, that was really fun to do, because we had to keep in mind that it needs to come to a circle. So when we started from the 50s to where we have reached now, that was really fun to adapt in the Indian context.
Also where he's talking about the women, how they say, so how am I looking, and you're not commented, and then she just leaves it mid-sentence and she goes away. Mm-hmm. So it's something that all genders are going to identify with. Heeba, I like the way you have used the stage. I like the set, and it's not such a big stage, and yet you feel it is your home, because you are so familiar with everything that is being used, and it's being used so casually. And though she has locked him out You are not feeling uncomfortable, and he's also not very uncomfortable. So you have done so many kinds of plays and very different musical also. There has been dance in your play, and this one is monologue. I don't know how many times you've done monologue before.
I started with doing monologues. I started
Monologues.
Ismat Appa ke naam. They were all monologues.
Yeah.
So I've started like, but they were in Urdu, of course.
Yeah.
The stage has been done by Vivek Jadhav, who's also Jadhav, right? Yadav. Extremely talented guy. So he basically did the whole set, and we just gave him an idea of the door. And the idea of the set was mentioned in the script. So I didn't really come up with anything new. I just like followed it. But the team has been great. The sound guy, the lighting person, the set. Yeah, we're fortunate enough to have a very, very good team actually.
So what are the challenges compared to the original or the other productions?
So, the way I look at it is not really challenges. There were a lot of opportunities that were there because one, yes, it was a one-man show, but there was so much else that we had to build around it. Right from, like you said, it's a very interesting set. It feels comfortable. It doesn't feel like, somebody's been thrown out. So we had to get the set right. Our lighting had to be bang on. So we had to make sure that, that's there because as you can see in the play, there are different parts. He's going into the club, then he's outside his house, then he's, talking about a bathroom scene. Everything had to kind of change. The music had to be right on cue because again, it's so intrinsic to the play. So
that's a very interesting thing you said. There's so much music, so much sound that has been used, and it's frequently coming.
Yeah.
And a small error can really spoil it.
Agreed. So for that's exactly what, we spent a lot of time on rehearsal. In fact, Heeba was very clear that we're going to rehearse.
She's a father's daughter.
So it was very clear that we were going to rehearse well. And therefore, the team had to be really good. They gave their time. We, in fact, did all the scenes that you've seen in the play multiple times over. The lock scene, which keeps happening, which everybody really loves. So we had to kind of, and we had to rehearse that, and it had to be on cue. If any of that goes wrong, then, everybody's then ad-libbing on it. So I think it was more to make sure that he might be alone there, but everybody else kind of comes together, does what they have to right so that, he knows he's got everything happening. So whether he's dancing, whether he's sitting, whether he's dreaming, whether he's talking, everything's kind of helping connect with him. And I think the team really, they just came together. We rehearsed well, and that's how it's all probably coming.
I was very happy at the premiere. I thought there was a lot of warmth and there was a lot of good vibrations from everybody, and those cavemen dressed guys and something that they were doing. First I got a little scared that why is this guy behaving like this, and then I found it funny and I liked it because they did it with so much conviction, and they did it again and again before the show, after the interval, and even after the show was over. Super it was. That was such a personal touch.
I almost got a heart attack when I walked in.
I was scared, and then he's smiling away as if he knows me. So tell me more.
Thank you.
How did you think of it? Because you thought that something of the caveman should be there.
Yeah, I just thought the caveman should be there. And the guy who was doing that, he's actually the backstage stage manager. So we were discussing about how you guys should be around. Anyway. So then he said, okay, why don't we make a sound like that? I said, you guys shout. So he actually shouted, and it was so funny. So I said, do you remember the way you shouted? But then he didn't come. He sent his other team. So he wasn't there for the first shows. But then when finally, I loved the way he screamed. And it was just,
Now tell me some funny incidents, moments about during the shooting, during the rehearsal that keeps haunting you guys, and because you're always smiling and laughing.
For me, one moment was, so usually I don't laugh on stage. I was telling Heeba, I was telling Avirat that for me it's not a problem. I can keep a poker face and I won't laugh. But the whole Titanic bit, every time somebody would go berserk And I always take my time turning around because I'm trying to control myself and then come around with a poker face and trying to take off my robe. Because if I laugh, they're going to see we're making fun of it. We're not actually the character at the end of the day. So for me, that was really difficult to kind of maintain during practices. He was like, take it all out during practices. This can't happen on stage. I was like, yeah, I'll laugh around here during practices so that it goes away. And finally, I've come to a stage where I don't laugh for that particular scene. That was tough.
You know, for me, that moment where you open the beer can and you offer it to somebody in the audience. Now, is it planned or you just offer it to anybody? It's planned.
Yeah, it's planned.
Huh.
So
No, it's not. I mean, the person is. We haven't planted anyone in.
Whoever is.
Whoever,
the,
yeah.
the,
But
the
it
concept
started
is
in
there.
another play. It started at, there was an actor who wanted to do it. He wanted to try it to like break it up. And that was actually when we did our third production in Iceland. So he tried it and he wanted to see if it worked.
Oh, I'm glad he did it.
So basically, you have a starting and an end to it, but in between, if anything happens, that is ad lib. So you know what question it begins with and what the answer is. But in between, if something happens, you have to improvise. So I feel like that really gets the audience much more connected because you're immersed with the audience now. So they actually feel like, oh, they're part of this play and not just watching it. So I find it very beautiful that it's been put there.
No, I think the fun part for me was when I was watching one of the first few shows and the audiences, I was sitting at the back, and the couples that had come together, after every line he would say, they would just look at each other and they would give each other that stares like, that's you. Or they would just pinch each other, So then you realize how relatable it is and how many things change the more they remain the same. Because it's been done for the last 24 years, he mentioned. Yeah. And still, with the same text, you're still getting the same responses. And people who are coming to watch it on their own were also reacting, because sometimes the guys would just go like, oh my God, I just did that, So the reactions for me were the most fun to watch, actually.
It's like Heeba says, it's not just about the couples, and it's not just about the heterosexual couples either.
Yeah.
It's about Metropolis, it's about singles, it can be about anybody. It is the gender differences, and it's about celebrating the gender differences. So I want to congratulate all of you and say that it's a great play, and I hope it does extremely well, and very, very important people come and watch it.